I'm going to share with you the state of Ariba and especially focused on our newest innovations. Let's start with the main stakeholders. First, on this slide, the demand, and over here, the supply. Now I'm drawing the same diagram I drew 15 years ago when Ariba first started. So here we have our requester who wants to buy something, like a laptop cable, which of course is indirect material, and he's buying it from a catalog. And the basic communication to the supplier is purchase order out and invoice back. Very simple. The trick is that there are thousands and thousands of suppliers to engage with, from the largest companies to little tiny one-man shops. So you'll need a way to engage all of those suppliers. So we put everything into a great big cloud and we're good to go. We can take care of the indirect needs of the buyer with catalogs. But life's a little more complex than that. And frankly, the value of a business network is a bit more than making it easy to buy office supplies. What we've described is an important part of the demand equation, but it's not the whole part. This part is what we call unstructured demand. People rocking up and wanting to buy stuff. But there's a whole host of other types of demand, which I call structured demand, sometimes called operational procurement. And this often comes from some type of a schedule. In an SAP world, it can come from a whole variety of systems. So in this alphabet soup of SAP modules, we see systems which are simple part ordering requests, like asset maintenance, and other end-user requisition tools like SRM, service management tools, direct materials like SNC and IBP, and of course the flagship new product S/4HANA, which also has logistics and finance capability. The other thing to note is that different industries buy this type of stuff in very different ways. In structured demand, the types of data structures, the way they're exported and transacted, and the ways that suppliers interact vary considerably. So we have been working with the SAP industry teams in building this out. Now, many industries have MRO supplies for things such as safety supplies, and these often fall in the unstructured area. But in industries such as oil and gas or mining, these are often raised from an asset maintenance record or a service request or even a reorder point. Note that the compliance document here is often a contract or a blanket order, as material masters may be stored somewhere else. Also, the supplier interactions are different. First, these suppliers are often more critical. If your pump's waiting for a new gasket, you kind of like to know where it is. So shipping information from suppliers is important. It's worth also talking about changes, as these types of orders can be open for a long time and revisions are common. You need to be able to handle that. Now, since there are often thousands of these orders and buyers need confirmations and shipping dates, these suppliers tend to be at the top of the pile in terms of integration and are usually requiring deep machine-to-machine integration. So let's talk about the supplier journey, because suppliers can choose the way they interact with the network that makes sense to them. File upload, for example, from Excel is a common halfway house. Note that the buyer doesn't have to be aware exactly of the tech chosen by his supplier. It's just as well because there could be thousands of them. The buyer just subscribes to the service on his side, which includes hooking up to his suppliers. And small suppliers, they don't want any tech. They just want to look at orders, enter shipping dates, and flip an invoice. So let's go back to the procurement cloud and look at some of the other key categories. Contingent labor is a fast-growing sector, and Fieldglass, of course, is the leader. The compliance mechanisms are varied, but as with all of the network's compliance documents, they live in the cloud where suppliers and buyers can both see them. Here, the integration is usually with a vendor's network of candidates called a VMS. And note the typical interactions here are around requests and candidates and CVs. It's all starting to look very different from that indirect catalog. The other way to think about services is on the structured demand side, often from one of these service management systems. This time, the compliance is less about the who and more about the what. So documents such as statements of work and milestones need to be shared with suppliers. Interactions with suppliers are different here again, since we're often connecting directly to their ticketing systems to exchange requests and work tickets, which buyers need to approve. Now, direct materials, that's a different game again. This time it's all structured demand. Forecasts and schedules are released daily and suppliers exchange their commitments. With changes every day, purchase orders would drown in revisions. So the mechanisms here are schedule agreement releases and call-offs with confirmations of commitments, planning horizons, etc. Finally, everyone's favorite commodity, travel. A large number of requesters, very personal, and a huge area of savings improvement in many organizations. In fact, companies that don't have much of this direct stuff often have a lot of travel. Banks, media, advertising, software often spend a lot here. And of course, the leader in managing this is Concur. Now, Concur takes an interesting approach. As well as reaching the common ticketing systems, which are called GDSs, they built a network of travel providers who natively connect and provide rich data directly. So the traveler doesn't have to type information in directly from partners such as British Airways, Starwood, or innovators such as Uber or Airbnb or even Starbucks. Note how these other clouds are starting to appear on this diagram. You start to see what we mean by a network of networks. So there you have it, a good story. This was the diagram I was drawing up until the end of 2015. And on the previous rate of innovation for Ariba, it would have been pretty much the same for 2016. But things have changed. With our new innovation agenda, we're bringing new capabilities to market at an ever greater pace. So let's start over here in sourcing. That's been a bit of a backwater for quite a long time, but not any longer, as we now build out the direct story with sourcing for direct materials. Has a lot of difference than other stuff. We require things such as bills of materials, 1,000-line requisitions, optimization capabilities, engineering documents, all linked to these back-end systems. Also, on direct materials, we're extending our supply chain into vendor-managed inventory and subcontractor business flows. Now, we talked about the different ways that suppliers can interact with the network. One of the things that we've seen is a new mobile capability for suppliers, so they can check the status of invoices, receive and confirm all their orders directly on the road. Another new capability for suppliers is the ability to receive and submit invoices all via a special interactive email. This is for the smallest suppliers who don't need these other capabilities, and it's an example of a freemium offering for suppliers on the network. We need to talk about another stakeholder who's becoming increasingly more important, and that's the corporate risk officer. For them, we're introducing a new capability called risk management, which takes on board the information from buyers via surveys and other metrics, from the network, total volumes, number of connections, and then these new data feeds from 100,000 data sources in multiple languages provided by our partner, Semantic Visions, who patented ways to read the internet, not just looking for keywords. Oh yeah, it runs on HANA as well. We also have a key partnership with the NGO Made in a Free World, whom we are working with on the elimination of slavery in supply chains. You know, there aren't many things that get my teenage daughter excited about my work, but this does. And we still have our relationship with Dun & Bradstreet as well. Now, jumping back to our little requisitioner at the top here, he's desperately looking for an obscure, out-of-production gasket. How many catalogs are you going to try and provide? There will always be a long tail of unmet demand. So what you need is millions of items from approved suppliers, and this is where the marketplace comes in, which we call spot buy. you get tens of millions of items from suppliers that you manage with detailed category information. And our first partner is eBay. Finally, in order to guide buyers through these new capabilities of catalogs, sourcing, in-stock items, rentals, spot buy, we have a new capability which is basically a big search bar saying, what do you want to buy? And we call it guided buying. It looks drop dead gorgeous as well. So down here I've left a bit of space for our other main stakeholder, finance. Not just the accounts payable team, but treasury. First, we're actually doing now that second P in purchase to pay by having an integrated payment without having to call up our ERP systems. And our first partner here is the Discover network. We've got others in the works as well. Another service that finance people want is the ability to store VAT invoices for the legally required period in the legally required formats. We now offer that as another integrated service. No need to download those to another archive anymore. Now, finance people want better visibility, which they can get through the business rules on the network, leading to cleaner invoices. So now they have better visibility, they want flexibility in what to do with it. So we offer a supply chain finance offering, allowing them to pay suppliers with a terms extension program using liquidity partners, 50 of them, to fund the suppliers. This improves a company's working capital. In addition, if cash is tight, then assets can be purchased via a built-in leasing option, allowing you to utilize an asset without paying the supplier until later. All done with a fully integrated network of leasing partners. Finally, one obscure piece of tech called HCP, HANA Cloud Platform, allows lots of creative solutions, as we can provide an additional channel for unstructured buying that comes not from a requester, but from a thing. Using Internet of Things capabilities with HCP, we can move from a graphical user interface to a no user interface, as requests can come in from sensors, scanners, scales, RFID, even Siri. Now, since this is an open, extensible platform, we can expect even more creativity from our partners here. So a few final thoughts. The clock speed at Ariba has fundamentally changed, as you see from this diagram. There are innovations happening all over the map. Also, notice how many other networks are now being introduced, and you start to see what it means by saying that we are orchestrating a network of networks. If it carries on like this, I'm going to need a bigger whiteboard.